A few weeks ago, I argued that we shouldn't be disappointed about the lack of a black and white remake, as the originals were already complete and virtually perfect, whereas Kalos desperately needs a revisit too, as there are so many unanswered questions and mysteries that this game can expand upon and answer. The first of which is what happened to Lysandre. In the Legend CA reveal trailer, we are shown the urban redevelopment plan that envisions a beautiful coexistence between people and Pokemon. And the mention of vision and beautiful is very reminiscent of Lysandre, who was described as a visionary and fought to preserve the beauty in Kalos. And we still don't know what happened to Lysandre after firing the ultimate weapon. In the Y version, it's inferred that he's dead as he fired the weapon to destroy everyone inside the headquarters. Furthermore, everyone in the post-game refers to him in past tense. But in Pokemon X, he actually uses the weapon to grant everyone inside eternal life. So is it possible that Lysandre was granted eternal life and is still alive? What if the ultimate weapon strike actually smashed through the earth, sending an invincible Lysandre to the depths of Kalos, where he encounters Terra Crystals and becomes obsessed with their beauty? As Terra Crystals are not exclusive to Area 0, they are found in Kitakami and up until Paldea and Kalos' border with the Terra Raid battles. The obvious flaw to this theory is how would Lysandre travel back in time to the events of Legend ZA? Well, according to the Hidden Treasure DLC, you don't necessarily need to build a time machine like Turo to travel back in time, as Terrapagos simply sends Turo into the future in the secret episode. Although this was only momentary time travel, and it was only activated because we had Terrapagos who can likely transmit signals through the Terra Crystals, which does make me wonder who actually controls the time machine. Was it really Turo's inventive work, or is it just Terrapagos underneath that controls time and enabled and perhaps even pushed Turo to become obsessive through sparking his interest by sending him back in time and giving him the Rise book? But it's unclear why Terrapagos would even want Turo to go to such extremes and make him suffer because of it. And I'll talk more about that in a couple weeks in a video dedicated to Scarlet and Violet. But if Terrapagos manipulated Turo, then maybe I would also be interested in manipulating an overly ambitious scientist in Lysandre. Regardless, I wouldn't be surprised if terrestrialization and Paldea has a role in Legend ZA, given this is still Generation 9 and they are geographically next to each other. But Paldea isn't the only place we've seen time travel occur, as Ingo and our character was sent back in time by Arceus in Hisui, as we witness a bright light and experience amnesia upon arriving in Hisui. That is similar to Lysandre's experience in Ultra Sun and Moon, where he says that after triggering the ultimate weapon, a bright light swallowed him and he wandered into this unfamiliar world. I have still yet to play Ultra Sun and Moon to understand the Rainbow Rocket chapter, so this very well could be a convenient excuse for why he is in Alola, or it could alternatively be referring to Infinity Energy's ability to transport things to different dimensions, as displayed in the Delta episode, when Cosmo was going to use a rocket filled with Infinity Energy to transport the meteorite to an alternate universe. Legend CA expands upon Infinity Energy, as ORAS confirms the existence of an alternate universe, but it isn't clarified why or how it exists. But back to the Lysandre theory. Lysandre has spoken a lot about how he can only envision one tragic future, where people and Pokemon will fight over the world's remaining resources and squander the world's beauty. So what better way to prevent this tragic future than by traveling back to the past, where Lysandre has the opportunity to establish his ideal world and ensure that beauty never fades. What better place than to have the most influence in Kalos than Lumiose City, the capital where the game exclusively occurs. And I do wonder why the people of Lumiose City and Kalos care so much about beauty and style. Is it really their culture, or is it that the beautiful architecture has conditioned the people to value it so much? Could Lysandre then be attempting to construct a society that values beauty by redesigning Lumiose City to ensure that he remains popular and in power? Now eternal, he could even attempt to rewrite the events of Pokemon X and Y, so that he no longer has to convince the world of his crazy ideals, as they will already be under his dominion. Similar to how we rewrote history by influencing the professor to not give up that he was on the verge of doing, by exchanging books and introducing the professor to Miraidon. And this would explain why the Lumiose City in Legend ZA looks different to the current day Lumiose City in Pokemon X and Y. It doesn't look that different though, because Lysandre was already satisfied with the city's beauty. He was just terrified of it ever changing. Lysandre is also very capable of leading this project, as he was head of a very successful innovation company in current day Kalos, a company that specializes in holographic images, similar to the 3D blueprint we saw in the trailer. But the main thing that caught my attention throughout the trailer was the amount of references to Terra crystals, as there is a reference to it on a sign at one of the storefronts. Although this shape is very similar to the shape of the Zygarde cells, so this could equally be a Zygarde restoration center as well. But we see yet another Terra crystal symbol on one of the bridges, and it should be noted that neither of these were present in X and Y's Lumiose City. The crazy theory is that this logo is actually a Terra particle, with Zygarde's eyes surrounding it. Originally I thought it could be a flower or referring to the ultimate weapon, but it could also just be a star, but I'm probably looking into the designs too much. The Terra crystals are the only addition to Lysandre's revised city though, as after experiencing the failure of Xerneas or Yveltal powering the ultimate weapon, Lysandre takes the third legendary, Zygarde, who not only reigns over both Xerneas and Yveltal with its ability Aura Break, but it's also a fitting Pokemon for Lysandre to wield, as it's said to be the guardian of the ecosystem, so Lysandre could try to control it through convincing Zygarde of the world's disorder. Although this was the plot of the X and Y anime, with the slight difference that Zygarde was controlled, not convinced. Regardless, I don't think they're gonna replicate this exact story, so maybe Lysandre is more balanced and just uses Zygarde as a consultant or barometer for the world's beauty instead of controlling it. That would be more consistent with the opening statement of the redevelopment plan that mentions coexistence. In fact, this whole theory is pretty much built off the assumption that the words beautiful and vision refers to Lysandre, but that isn't necessarily the case. It may just mention that because the people of Kalos enjoy beauty, they are seen by the expensive boutiques or the fur hairdressers. And so far I've ignored the actual subject of this statement that says that the redevelopment is so that the city can become somewhere where both people and Pokemon can coexist. And this is shown in the blueprint with the Pokemon roaming through the city. So it's likely that we'll be focusing on a goal similar to Legends Arceus, that focus on incorporating Pokemon into Hisui's village and the broader society. And despite what I said about this game occurring in the past, there hasn't actually been any confirmation of that. It's still very likely that this is in the past as it's named Legends. But it's also possible that we could just be redeveloping current day Lumiose City to be accommodating for Pokemon. Because while there are a few Pokemon running about in current day Lumiose City, it's nothing compared to what the trailer was showing. So again, I'm not writing off the possibility of time being rewritten, but of course the actual answer to why X and Y doesn't look like the AZ trailer is that it would just be even more overwhelming on the 3DS. But anyway, I am hopeful that we'll have some influence in the design of Lumiose City, as that was one of my wishes that I mentioned in my Legends Arceus review. specifically that we would be able to establish and design the region's first gym. Nevertheless, it is intriguing that this game is only occurring in Lumio City, although on the official Nintendo website, Lumio City is in quotation marks, so I think there is more to Lumio City than it first appears. For example, there could be a vast underground cave system, and perhaps this isn't actually Lumio City, but an underground version to best accommodate Zygarde, and that's why there's so much neon lighting. I'm mostly joking, but either way, Lumio City is going to be even more confusing in Legends EA, given the sheer amount of buildings present in this blueprint. And I am interested to see how they use the centralized location of Lumio City to their advantage. A crazy hope is that Lumio City becomes one big MMO, where you can interact with players online as you run past them. But more realistically, we should expect to see more updates to the local multiplayer, because as great as Legends Arceus was in offering a focused single-player experience, many people would be disappointed if there wasn't a return to the online features, especially since X and Y made the online features very accessible, so it would be cool to see an online focus in Legends EA. I am hoping that the Legends Arceus catching mechanics return, maybe without the aggression aspect though, as that doesn't make much sense for a developed Kalos, and I'm predicting that we'll literally be able to catch Pokemon in Lumio City streets and canals as we saw in the trailer. It also looked like there is a return to follow Pokemon. Hopefully we also see a return to bikes, as we probably don't need ride Pokemon for Lumio City. We can just use the roads and the expensive taxi system. Surely we can enter buildings again too, as this is just one big city. Although I guess they would also be keen to reduce the amount of loading screens for an open world effect like Scarlet and Violet. I'm also curious to see what will even be in these buildings, as Scarlet and Violet and Lumio City have so many repeated facilities and cafes. So hopefully each area has more of a unique purpose. Perhaps the 5 plazas will store the 5 Zygarde cores, and the Prism Tower is actually the ultimate weapon this time, as the gym signage has been replaced with these triangles in the trailer. And I do hope that they'll take a break from gyms as the focus, as they did in Legends Arceus, especially after how much of a focus battling was in the Scarlet and Violet DLC, with more gym rematches and another Elite Four. Instead of gyms, I hope we get to battle against Mega Evolution Gurus that are scattered around the city, that upon defeating we receive their respective Megastones, and learn more about how Mega Evolution actually works, as I think the feature has so much potential to receive an expansive story about the origin and science behind it. They could even introduce some skill-based mechanics to activate Mega Evolution, or alternatively have a friendship requirement to be able to Mega Evolve, as the games describe Mega Evolution only working for Pokemon that the trainer has a close bond to, but that's not yet reflected in the actual mechanic. So it would be cool if the Pokemon that didn't meet the friendship requirement and are Mega Evolved, that they actually stop listening to you, similar to overleveled Pokemon or the X and Y anime. I was also going to predict that there will be new Mega Evolutions, but thinking about it, if Legends EA is set in the past, then they're going to need to explain why any new Mega Evolution goes extinct by the events of X and Y. I suppose they can say that the stones get lost, but I don't think the reason really matters that much. Surely we get new Mega Evolutions. I also wonder if we'll see any continuation of Paradox Pokemon, but again, we still don't know how far back this game is set. We know that there was a war in Kalos 3,000 years ago that this game surely won't be set in, but there was also a war 300 years ago according to the Parfum Palace in X and Y. Munching Orange also suggested that this game could be set in the Belle Epoque era, the era that France built their Eiffel Tower for the 1889 World Fair. But either way, I would expect to see AZ return in some capacity, even if the title is CA, which could be referring to Lysandre coming from the present back to the past, unlike AZ, who lived from the past to the present. Munching Orange also pointed out that the A in the title could be the Greek letter that denotes the wavelengths. That could be referring to Mega Evolution, as Sycamore says that Megastones transform the feelings between you and your Pokemon into some kind of wavelength. And interestingly, you can see a wavelength graph in Chira's lighthouse, as well as a weird green Terra crystal and another weird green Terra machine. And I discussed in my X and Y video how I thought a Pokemon Z for the 3DS may not have been as interesting as people hyped it up to be, with the relatively few things it could have expanded upon, such as the power plant, the Ghost Girl, Kuraway Station, and of course increased difficulty, and a story about Zygarde. While I also think that many of X and Y's issues were ultimately fixed in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire that I've discussed in my ORAS retrospective. So I'm glad that Kalos is receiving a game with a fresh direction that doesn't have to mirror or replicate the original games at all, that a Pokemon Z for the 3DS would have likely done. But be sure to let me know what you think in the comments section.